We're pleased to be joined by CJ Albertson, the man perhaps best known for leading the 2021 Boston Marathon for much of it before finishing 10th place. That was actually the slowest time he's ever run in Boston. He ran 2:11:44. The last 2 years he's run 2:10 in Boston. You run 2:10, you've got to be considered an Olympic hopeful for the U.S., and that's why you're on the show. CJ, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we want to talk to, everyone we think has a chance, and you're definitely there. When you're getting ready for a marathon, as a journalist, it's kind of hard to know. Like, we know everyone's credentials, but we don't know how their training's been going, their racing's been going. With you, it's a little bit easier because you race a lot. So back in the beginning of December, you ran marathons on back-to-back weekends. You won both of them, right?
Yeah, the first 2 weekends of December, I won CIM, and then I went to Baja California, Mexico, and won a marathon there.
And in the second one, you ran under 2:11, the Olympic standard both times, but the second one counts because it's a legitimate course, not downhill. So you don't have to worry about time or anything like that. If you're top 2 at the trials on Saturday, you'll definitely be on the Olympic team. If you're third, you'll probably be on the Olympic team. How have things been going since then?
Not necessarily like perfect. I guess not necessarily what I envisioned my training would be leading into the trials. My training is definitely way better than it was leading up to the back-to-back 2:11s that I ran. So yeah, I definitely think I'm more fit than what I was in December. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to really say because I haven't really done anything that's crazy where I feel this is for sure the best shape of my life, or this was crazy that I ran, but I feel like my effort in a lot of things has been lower than maybe in the past. So it's hard to really judge. Because you don't necessarily want to be racing workouts anyways. And I'm training by myself for pretty much everything. So it's hard to get a gauge of what I really can do. So I think I just have to kind of race smart and race within the zone of what I'm capable of running. And if I do that, I think I'll have a chance.
So have you been healthy though?
Physically, well, yeah, I haven't really had any injuries. I had one little adductor strain, but it was only just kind of tweaked for a couple of days. Maybe took one speed day out, but it didn't really affect too much. I'm currently kind of sick, but hopefully it's good timing. I started feeling kind of bad on Thursday. Yesterday was probably the worst. So hopefully it will just make me kind of over rest, and then, Friday, Saturday I'll be feeling good.
You said you've been training alone, and, you're training at sea level too. Whereas a lot of your competitors are, training together in Flagstaff or Boulder. Have you ever thought about doing altitude or doing something like that?
A little bit. I have an altitude machine. This training block, I didn't use it at all because I was doing so much heat stuff, and the adaptations, it can kind of work doing both, but it's just tricky because of the way that your blood plasma and different adaptations with your blood adapt to the heat and adapt to the altitude. I've done kind of both in the past, and it's just a lot of stressors on the body as well as running a lot of miles and doing speed work and stuff like that. So I just kind of stuck with the heat because that was more applicable to what we're doing in Orlando, and you can get a lot of the end aerobic benefits are end up being roughly the same, but it's just more specific to our race conditions. So I've been pretty much doing some sort of heat training probably at least 5 days a week for the past 8 weeks. So I'd say it's just different than altitude training.
Now, I noticed about a month ago you did do a workout with Conner Mantz, and he ran a 61-minute half marathon. So how much of that did you do with him, and what made you want to help out one of your biggest rivals, I guess, for a spot?
Yeah, that week prior, actually, I had gotten sick too. It feels like I've been sick more often this, but so I had a really kind of a bad 4 or 5 days, and so when he came into town, it was kind of nice. I was I need at least a decent workout because I haven't had a good workout in a little while. So I just ran with him. I knew I wasn't going to be able, I knew I wasn't going to run a 61 half in practice at that time. But so I ran like 5.5 with him and then jogged kind of like 2 miles until we met up again and then ran the last 4.5. So I think I got in around like 10 miles at whatever that pace is, 4:44, 4:45, which was good enough for me at the time that I was at. So, yeah, I mean, it was, I guess it was helping him, but it was helping me just as much or more. So, yeah.
Why don't you tell some people about your hot weather setup? Because it's kind of crazy. I mean, you've been preparing for hot weather, and I think you've kind of wanted hot weather, right? Because conditions don't seem to phase you. But you've got a heat lamp or several heat lamps. Like how hot has it been when you've been hopping on that treadmill?
So I have like 11 of these infrared heat lamps. They're like basically the ones that you'd buy for like a chicken coop. They're each 250 watts. And then, yeah, they're just kind of hooked up, like not like attached to my treadmill, but just like around it. So they're shining on me. And then, I have like these like red light panels too that'll turn on sometimes. And then I have a humidifier. And then I put like some sheets kind of around the treadmill. They're like nailed to my wall. So they make kind of like a little like box the treadmill sits in to try to trap in a little bit of moisture. So it's hard to get the exact degrees because like depending on where I put the thermometer, it's all over the place, but it's somewhere in the 90s, like, yeah, somewhere in the 90s and humidity, close to 80. So the dew point is normally around like 85 to 90, which is way harder than you'd ever race in. But, I'm starting to feel pretty comfortable in that now. Besides the sweat, so like my treadmill is so wet all the time. The hardest part's just like making sure I don't slip. But
I imagine a lot of the runners were kind of looking at the forecast, hoping for decent weather, and you were maybe looking for terrible weather. But what do you think of the forecast? I mean, we're what, 4 or 5 days out. It looks like it's going to be high 50s at the start, maybe mid 60s at the finish. Dew point only going to be like in the 40s, which is, it's going to be a little bit warm, but not nearly what a lot of people were worried about. So are you kind of disappointed in that or what?
I mean, I'm not disappointed because you're going to get a great race, which is what we all want. I mean, I think ideally for me, yeah, it'd be a little bit warmer. But I mean, it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like either way, like I don't really have to worry about the weather now because if it's warm, then it's, good for me. And if it is what it is right now, I think it'll be at least warm enough, like if it creeps up to close to 70 towards the end, maybe people don't close, in like 14:30 the last 5K, like running off a solid pace to begin with. So it may slow things down just enough towards the end and where hopefully I can just keep grinding out, 4:55s or whatever it is, 4:53s. But yeah, I mean, I don't think the weather will really play a factor. Everyone's prepared for it. If it was like, I don't know, some race we expected to be cold and no one heat trained, then maybe 60s is a little warm, but everyone's going to be more than prepared for the conditions on Saturday. So I don't know if it will really benefit anyone because I think everyone's done the work to be prepared either way.
I think mid 60s and sun will, going to be, I think it'll impact people definitely last 30 minutes of the race. You talked about the keys, to run smart. So what does smart for CJ Albertson mean? Because you famously, everyone knows about Boston, how you led the race. And I think at the time people thought this is crazy. This is a joker. And then they caught you and you stayed with them and came back on them. And since then you've proven like, hey, this wasn't a joke. This guy's legit. But I think a lot of people don't realize you kind of did the same thing in high school. I mean, you were a Foot Locker finalist and 2011, you had the lead the first mile. So do you like to lead? Like what makes you do that? And might we see you like is smart? Could that still have you running in front of the pack?
I mean, I do like to lead. I feel comfortable in the front, but I think in both those circumstances, Boston and even the first mile of Foot Locker, they're downhill starts. And I'm not necessarily taking it out super hard when I'm leading like that. That year I was leading Boston was my slowest opening half. This year I ran 2 minutes faster in the opening half than I did that year that I was leading. And then even at Foot Locker, I think I opened up with like a 4:43 first mile and it was a net downhill. And it's like, this is the national championships. Like 4:43 isn't that fast for a 5K net downhill. I think it was just more I would run my own pace, and especially on a downhill, I can go a little bit quicker, and that's just what feels comfortable.
And why do you think you're such a better runner now as a professional than you were in college? I mean, high school, you did make the nationals, but you were like 36th. And then in college, I mean, you weren't making NCAAs in cross country. You made it once in the steeplechase. Is that right?
Yeah.
So what explains the improvement? Is it just that you're made for the marathon, or did you find your own training that worked?
I think a little bit of both. I think I was definitely better at the marathon. I mean, I think even now, like if I was trying to compete in the 5K, or even 10K, like I probably wouldn't be super competitive, or like I wouldn't be on a pre-Olympic trials talk show guy. I wouldn't be, up there like, oh, is this guy going to beat Grant Fisher? Like probably not. So yeah, I think I'm just better at the marathon, and I adapted well to the training of it. And mentally I just like the marathon, and yeah, I don't know, just everything about the marathon, I think I just, for the most part, excel in. And so, yeah, it's more the event than anything else. And I just kind of stuck with it. I think a lot of people, you just kind of stop running after college. And like, if you don't like the marathon and you're not super, super fast, and like, you're going to be done. And you typically get better with age in the aerobic events. And so I just kind of kept going and found an event I was better in. And so it worked out.
And how would you describe your mindset? I mean, it sounds like your training hasn't been perfect, but are you like, darn, I wish the training was a little bit better. I'm not quite where I want to be. Or are you like, this is exciting. I was 7th last time. I've got another shot. In college, I probably would have never dreamed of making an Olympic team.
Yeah, I mean, I think both, all those things. You have tons of thoughts. I think everyone's going to have thoughts about like their training that could go better. Sometimes even when your training goes perfectly, then it's like you're almost more nervous, because it's like you're afraid like one little thing, like something's gonna like mess it up right before the race, or there's more pressure or something. So I think like, yeah, you have both good thoughts and bad thoughts, or confident thoughts and negative thoughts. And so the goal is to kind of just not think too much. And I feel like I really haven't thought. I mean, I've thought about the trials, but like, at the same time, I haven't really thought about it that much. And like, I don't necessarily feel like just crazy fit. Like I'll see some of the guys' workouts that they've done recently, some like whatever they call marathon simulators or different workouts. And I'm like, I, probably couldn't do that, but that's also not racing a marathon. And I feel like I'm pretty good at racing marathons, even in races where like I'm not nearly as fit as I am right now. Like I can just lock in and run, 2:11 flat, like run around 5-minute pace or a little under, just with like an okay race day. So I feel like right now I know if I just kind of run what I think I can run and stay within my zone, I think I'm just going to be better at racing the last 8 miles than a lot of people that, are maybe faster than me.
And what are you going to do if it goes out hard? I mean, I think Jonathan Gault was talking to, I think it was Scott Simmons. He was saying some of those guys they don't have the standard. They're worried about the U.S. not having 3 spots. They might just try to run 2:08:10, which to me seems stupid, because I would just try to run with the pack and get top 2 and assume we're going to get the 3rd big. But if it goes out that fast, do you think you'll go with it? Will you hold off with it? And do you like that? Would it be good for you if that happens? Because then maybe there's some carnage and you pick up the guys at the end. Or like, how would you react to that? Like, let's say these Kenyan-born guys just go out in 2:08 flat pace.
I mean, yeah, if they go out in 2:08 flat, it's not going to be too fast. I mean, I think you're going to see at least a pack of at least 20 for at least 15 miles, probably more, but just like very conservatively, at least I'd probably say 30 or 40 through the half at least. And then even by 30K, there's still a pretty big group, because a lot of guys can run between a half marathon and 30K at 2:08 pace and probably be pretty comfortable, probably more comfortable than me. But I think that's kind of like the upper limit. I was, going through, and I feel like if I'm drafting, like if I'm just sitting there like 453s, 455s, somewhere, between 208 low and 209 flat, I feel like I can just lock in and run that pace. And if it gets a little bit warm towards the end, I feel like I can just maintain that. If I'm in the hunt, maybe I close down and finish. And I think that's how I'll make the trials. But I've also seen the scenario, like I feel like it could go out faster. Like I feel like a lot of guys could run 63 flat. Maybe some of those guys you were talking about, but then also Connor Mans and Clay Young could easily run that. I don't know if they feel like they would. I feel like they would because it would feel so relatively easy for them. They would just kind of go with it. And Mans could maybe run that anyway. So then I'd have to kind of make a decision. I'd still want to run between 453 to 455s. It'd just be if, how big of a group or if at all can I, and how long can those guys run with me? Because I don't necessarily feel confident to run like 208.20 running by myself the whole time. But if I'm running with a group and then we start picking people off, then I can run that. And then, yeah, a lot of those guys that were now 63 flat would probably come back, especially if it's warm towards the end. And then you're just chasing people down, kind of like Jake Riley did in 2020.
Yeah. Well, it's cool. People love it, when a Jake Riley type makes it, or if you make it, back in the day when the first Hanson Brooks guy made it. I'm blanking on his name. Help me out here. The guy that went to dental school.
Was it Brian Sell?
Yeah, so that would be good. But yeah, no one's tougher than you. Good luck. Thanks for joining us. I just loved it when you won that Mexico Marathon. The guy on the live stream nicknamed you El Diablo. So hopefully you have a little devil in you and are super tough on Saturday. We know you will be, and you give it your all. So 7th last year. Hope to be interviewing you in the top 3 on Saturday.
All right. Yeah, me too. Thank you.
All right.